पहले इतना गरीबी था कि आदमी अगर लकड़ी नहीं बेचता तो खाता का। फिर मजबूरन हम लोग के लकड़ी बेचना ही पड़ा। अब काट के और हम लोग जा रहे थे दूधी सुबह, फिर दूधी से आकर के फिर आते जंगल में आकर के फिर समझ लीजिए कि लकड़ी शाम की व्यवस्था करते। यहाँ हम लोग अगर वह चीज़ नहीं करते तो भूखे मरते। कोई धंधा हम लोग के यहाँ था नहीं। लकड़ी काटने में कष्ट था ही कि पेड़ जैसे गिरता था तो सीधे पेड़ नहीं गिरता है, हाय ने जरूर करता है। अपने दिमाग में आदमी सोच लिया हाय उसका ये हाथ काटने वाला पड़ जाता है। वही से कान पकड़ लिया हम कहे कि ये धंधा हमसे नहीं हो पाएगा।
Here is a site that defines the sole means of livelihood for millions of Indians. It's the early morning rush in the Dudhi market in Renukut town in Uttar Pradesh. Suresh and his fellow villagers have walked down 8 kilometers from their village with a headload of 30 kilos of fuel wood. And then comes the daily haggling with the shopkeeper in the bazaar. Suresh accepts a meager 140 rupees because if he doesn't, there would be no ration for dinner tonight. This is where it all begins. A rich tropical forest in Sonbhadra, which is now severely degraded in parts. Thousands of forest dwellers come here to lop fuel wood. Like any tropical forest, this is an enormous store of carbon. But when it's cut, the forest can no longer store carbon, which then remains in the atmosphere and accelerates global warming. However, while they lop the wood, the poor are certainly not worrying about climate change or its impacts. Nonetheless, in 2011, at the 17th Conference of Parties in Durban, governments of nearly 100 countries were working round the clock to figure out how forest dwellers like Suresh can help to reduce climate change under an ambitious scheme called REDD+, meaning reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation in developing countries. The idea of REDD+ is simple. Industrialized countries pay developing countries to stop deforestation and manage their forest sustainably. It means that by assigning a financial value to the forest carbon store, REDD+ makes it more attractive to protect the forest than to cut it. But how exactly will it work? How will forest communities be rewarded for conserving forests? How will their needs, rights, and livelihood be protected? How will forest carbon be measured? Who will monitor? The questions are too many, and the answers are divided. And while this debate continues, let's go back to Suresh's village in India to find a few answers.
Near to thick forest, that river Renu. Around the river there was a good fertile valley and people lived there in a large number. It was a very thick forest. Habitation was very sparse. When I came here, if we wanted a small thing also, we had to travel 7 kilometers to fetch it. So no market was there. There was no road. For me also it was a new experience to be in the forest.
Ragini Behan is a Gandhian who has lived in Sonbhadra since the 1960s, fighting for the rights of the local communities. She has seen it all in her lifetime. The destruction of thick forest, the rise of Sonbhadra as a haven for industry, and the mounting struggles of the local people to preserve their land and dignity.
Coming up of an industry means inflow of lot of people from outside. And so forest is denuded. And when they say that they will give employment, it is so dishonoring. The person who is a farmer has his own prestige. He is made a laborer. So industries require laborer. So they make him a laborer. A farmer has got his own status. Laborer has no status. And then again, a farmer, if he is working, whole family can live. But then when the job is given to one person, and it's just sufficient for one person's family, and what about the others?
It is not surprising then that Sonbhadra has a long history of conflict between the local communities and state authorities over land and forest rights. However, a few years ago in 2008, a refreshing initiative tried to change this dynamics. The Uttar Pradesh Forest Department, with financial support from the Japan International Cooperation Agency, launched a major program in 14 districts covering nearly 80,000 hectares of forest area. The goal was ambitious: involve local communities, create new means of livelihood, and rehabilitate degraded forests.
जब हम आप लोगों ने बैठकर बात की थी तो आपने खुद हमें यह बताया था कि यहाँ पर दबाव बहुत ज़्यादा है.
Gardarwa was one such village which was handed over nearly 270 hectares of forest to guard and conserve.
फॉरेस्ट पे जो ओवर डिपेंडेंस हो रही है, जो बर्डन हो रहा है फॉरेस्ट में, उसको कैसे रिड्यूस करें. तो हमारे उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार ने इसमें एक बहुत अभिनव पहल की कि विलेज फॉरेस्ट डिक्लेयर होने की प्रक्रिया का सरलीकरण किया गया. वो सारी पावर्स डीएफओ के लेवल में डेलीगेट की गई कि डीएफओ उस विलेज फॉरेस्ट को कम्युनिटी से बात करके डिक्लेयर कर दें और बाद में इसका अप्रूवल गवर्नमेंट कर देगी. तो ये एक बहुत बड़ी, मतलब मैं कहूँगा बहुत बड़ी स्टेप थी पार्टिसिपेशन की तरफ.
The task of rejuvenating the degraded forest was top priority. But this time, the decisions were made by the villagers as members of the Joint Forest Management Committee.
आगे जब उनको विलेज फॉरेस्ट दिया गया तो ये पूरी फ्रीडम रखी गई कि ऐसी प्रजातियां वहाँ पे लगाई जाएं, फॉरेस्ट के अंदर ऐसे काम किए जाएं जिसको कम्युनिटी चाहती है. कम्युनिटी ने कहा हमें चिरौंजी लगानी है तो चिरौंजी लगाई गई. ऐसी भी प्रजातियां लगाई गई जिनको ट्रेडिशनली हम लोग नहीं लगाते थे, परंतु जब कम्युनिटी ने कहा तो उस प्रजातियों को कम्युनिटी ने लगाया और उसको प्रमोट किया गया.
But what was more critical was to reinforce the idea of sustainable harvesting.
भाई जैसे इसको आप काट रही हैं तो थोड़ा थोड़ा बिया यहाँ आपको छोड़ना पड़ेगा.
It was important to remind people not to exploit the forest beyond its means. Collecting and processing minor forest produce is a lot of hard work, but the villagers seldom got a fair price for it. This had to change.
इसमें लोगों को दाम के पता नहीं था कि किस रेट में बिकेगा. औने पौने दाम में लोग बेच देते थे. ये एफएमसी के माध्यम से हम लोगों ने बताया उनको कि जो है वास्तविक रेट ये है. जैसे चकवड़ हुआ तो उसका फल जो है 5 रुपया लेते थे, इस समय 10 रुपया बाज़ार में बिक रहा है. और चिन्हावर हुआ तो वो जो है 40 रुपया लोग बेच देते थे, लेकिन उसको 70-80 रुपया इस समय. बाज़ार में कई तरह के रेट है. कुछ खरीदी जो एफएमसी भी की है, शुरू में ख़रीद के हम लोगों में दिखाया कि इतना दाम से नीचे आप लोग बाहर बेचते हैं तो मत बेचिएगा.
पहले से ही लाख का खेती बहुत ज़्यादा होता था, किंतु 8-10 साल से लाख का खेती बिल्कुल मतलब समाप्त हो चुका था.
Lac is a kind of raisin secreted by insects that live off the sap of certain trees. Gangalal is a traditional lac cultivator who gave it up because there was hardly any income from it. What was missing was scientific knowledge.
जो हमारे पलाश के पेड़ हैं उनमें क्या करते हैं कि 2 मौसम में लाख कीट चढ़ाए जाते हैं. जैसे एक तो जुलाई के महीने में फर्स्ट वीक में और दूसरा अक्टूबर के.
A number of NGOs and scientists helped to provide training on modern rearing techniques.
तो वैज्ञानिक आए, हम लोग को प्रशिक्षण दिए कि मतलब लाख का खेती कैसे करना चाहिए। और लाख जो है पहले वर्ष तो कुछ कम हुआ, फिर इन साल जो है बहुत काफ़ी मात्रा में जगह जगह जो है हर पेड़ों में अब देखने को मिलने लगा। इन साल हम लोग 30 kg लाही सीड्स बेचे, बीज नए ऐसन में, तो लगभग 15,000 के लगभग मिल गया। पहले जाते थे जंगल से लकड़ी लाते थे, बेचते थे और 100 रुपया ही मात्र पाया। अब लाख में ये 500 रुपया किलो का ये लाख जो है ये रोजगार होने से जंगलों में जो है जिसे लकड़ी का कटान कम हुआ।
And then there were other ideas beyond the forest.
हम लोग जो है घरेलू बीज करते थे, तो उसमें उत्पादन बहुत बढ़िया नहीं होता था, बहुत बढ़िया फली नहीं आती थी। तो इन्होंने बताया कि मार्केट से जो है उसका बिया खरीदो, तो अच्छा फल भी लगा उसमें, उससे जो है 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 रुपया कमा लेते हैं, साल भर का खर्चा हो जाता है।
It is a feeling of redemption for Pawan, redemption from the life he had lived so far.
लकड़ी हमने बहुत काटा और उसका बिजनेस भी किया, लेकिन लकड़ी एक हत्या है। लकड़ी में कभी जो है आदमी का पेट नहीं भरा। तो हम जो है टमाटर का अब धंधा करते हैं और उसमें हमारा जो है परिपार्जन जो है बढ़िया चल रहा है। हम बहुत खुश हैं सर।
पहले जो है जेफएमसी नहीं बनी थी, उसके पहले जंगल में लोग काटते थे और इस कदर काटते थे कि वो जंगल जो है वन विभाग का है। अब जेफएमसी जब बनी है तो गांव वालों को ये लग रहा है कि जंगल ये हमारी हो गई है, अब इसका सुरक्षा हमें करना है। तो इसलिए जो है वो जंगल में हम देख रहे हैं कि 50% सुधार आ गया है।
इससे और जंगल में आग भी लगता था, पहले तो लोग रुचि नहीं लेते थे। अब जंगल का महत्व लोग समझे, आग लगता है तो गांव वालों में हम लोग सूचना देते हैं, सब जा कर के बुझा भी देते हैं। तो पेड़ ही रहेंगे तब तो हमारे बच्चे का भी भविष्य सही रहेगा।
There was no doubt that the village forest of Gardarwa had improved. But just how much? Forestry scientists from TERI, with support from the Norwegian government, chose this site for a REDD+ study. The idea was to demonstrate a simple methodology to measure the increase in the carbon stock of the forest.
In Renukot, our approach was to involve the local communities and forest frontline staffs. If the local communities can be involved in the field measurements and scientists can do the assessment of that data, this will reduce the probably reduce the cost of the project.
The process began by selecting a stretch of nearly 77 hectares within the village forest, which was divided in random sample plots. The standing biomass stock of this area was assessed by measuring various components such as the above ground tree biomass, below ground tree biomass, woody litter, dead wood, and soil organic carbon. This biomass data collected from the ground, mapped against the current satellite imagery, gave a regression formula through which scientists could calculate the biomass of the selected area at the baseline of 1990. The result was evident. Between 1990 and 2012, the biomass of the forest had increased by 51 tons per hectare, which means the carbon stock had increased by nearly 30 tons per hectare, totaling to nearly 2,300 tons for the selected area. In the international voluntary carbon market, this is approximately worth $25,000, subject to an average rate of $3 per certified emission reduction. If and when REDD+ becomes a reality in future, the villagers of Gardarwa could claim this money from a developed country for protecting their forest and increasing its carbon stock. But until that happens, can the REDD+ model be used to address India's biggest challenge of alleviating poverty in forested and tribal areas?
We have conducted 5 pilots in different parts of the country. The outcome of these pilots can help central government and state government in the implementation of forest development schemes, particularly Green India Mission.
The carbon service, as we think that will be incentivized through REDD+, is as far as country is concerned, is one of the co-benefits. It is not the sole benefit, and it will be in addition to the
products and services which the forests are already providing. So if we are able to strengthen the conservation regime, it will add to the not only the carbon, but it will enhance the ecological environmental services, the goods and products which are available from the forest, and it will add to the livelihood of the local communities which are highly dependent on the forest.
For years, this was Suresh's life. Sneaking into the forest, cutting wood and selling it for survival. Now it's very different. He is respected as a skilled tussar farmer. His job demands long hours in the forest rearing caterpillars. His main income comes from selling cocoons. He is happy as much as the forest is healthy. Tropical forests store 1/4 of all terrestrial carbon. They are massive mitigation engines quietly doing their job. Saving them is the best bet against climate change. And forest dwellers are the best people to save them. But the question is, are we ready to listen to them?
जंगल तो सरकार का तो है, लेकिन उसमें किसान भी उसके पूरक हैं। देखिए, जब तक सरकार चाहेगा कि हम बचा लें और हम नहीं साथ दें, तो जंगल नहीं बच सकता। सरकार को हम बनाए हैं और जंगल भी सरकार का है, तो हम दिए हैं, तो उसका रक्षा करना हमारा और सरकार दोनों का काम है।